guess we'll start the meeting at 6 o'clock. Maybe some others will join us shortly. All right, so we'll call to order. And did everybody get the meeting minutes for January?
Sure did.
Yes.
I didn't have any corrections, so I'll put forward a motion to accept the meeting minutes. Oh, Andrew, go for it.
Just one thing, just this real slight correction. So I think you had on there Zentango, like an A-N-G-O, but it should be Zentangle, A-N-G-L-E, like tangle of knots.
Can you spell that again, Andrew?
Z-E-N-T-A-N-G-L-E.
Zentangle. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Either one, so
No, that's all right.
thank you. I'll correct that and republish them.
Well, and if you guys are comfortable, if it's just that one, we can put forward a motion to accept with that correction.
Correct.
So
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We don't have a friend on at the moment. And that could just be because our weather and change of venue. So I don't know if we want to skip the friends update.
Yeah, we'll have to because I wasn't involved in anything recently.
Okay. All right. So
I'm
then
trying to remember. I did attend it. Let me think. They talked about some upcoming events. I don't have the dates, but they have a number of things coming up in the next couple of months here.
Lee?
Oh, here's Lee. I'll let her get situated. Is she there?
Hey, Lee, can you hear us?
Oh, she can hear us, but can't talk by the sounds of it.
Yep, that's what the notes say. Okay.
All right. Well, we can come back to it when maybe later if her computer plays nice. Do you want to keep going with the director's report, Andrew? We can
Sure.
circle
That's
back to
fine.
the
Yeah, let's
friends.
do that and circle back.
That's fine. Before I start, correction up front. This last month, I mentioned to you that I had looked at the figures and I thought we'd be able to add like now, like an 8-hour-a-week position. That has changed a little bit. Before I contacted Human Resources to, talk about doing interviews and that sort of thing, the January figures came through, and we should be at 58% spent of each budget line. And as it turns out, at the moment in salaries after January, we're at 54.5%. Did not translate into 8. hours, translated to perhaps 5, maybe close to 6. So not enough really for us to look at a position. So my apologies on that. We are going to be looking into an 8-hour-a-week position in the new budget that's been put into the new budget. The 6 hours that is available, 5 or 6 hours, I should say, that is available. 4 of those hours we received at the beginning of the year. I think we talked about this, that there were 4 additional hours to give. I think what I'd like to do at this point is take those hours and have the staff meeting soon. I'd like to sort of reprioritize those hours for processing and cataloging because we have quite a bit to work on. I've had some staff upstairs who are often more so downstairs doing processing. But I'd like to see if we can't sort of get some of those hours to folks off the desk specifically for processing and cataloging. And like I said, that doesn't mean we won't be looking into an 8-hour-a-week position in the new fiscal. I just don't want us to get into any trouble in terms of the salaries, and it just seems too tight right now. And certainly not enough for us to look into a position if it's only, like I said, a little under 6 hours available. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So the staff meeting will be meeting on Tuesday, March 4th. We will be talking about the strategic plan and some of the tasks that we talked about this past meeting, the past trustees meeting, including outreach. And I believe I talked about a tech inventory of our tech at the library. We'll also talk about that additional assistant position that we are lobbying for in FY26. And we'll talk again about later hours potentially during the week. I want to see where everybody's at with that, seeing as it's been a while since I talked about that. By that, I mean, we're open till 7. If there was any possibility of us being open until 8, I want to revisit that with them. And then we'll also talk about, like I said, processing and cataloging and additional hours there and see if we can have some folks do some work off the desk. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Staff conflict of interest training must be completed over the next month. If staff are doing the training at home, what I've been doing is making sure that they get those hours on their timesheets because it's clearly work related. It's the same thing we did with the Collins Center when everybody did their position surveys. I met with Phyllis Foley, it was probably about a week and a half ago. Phyllis would like to step back from the genealogy room. I wouldn't say that the number of questions we get each month, we probably average 1 or 2 questions a month, if that. But I think she just is at the stage where she's 85 and she feels like she wants to be doing some other things. And I think what she'd like to do is really sort of hand it over to somebody who has the inclination and the interest to make sure the genealogy room stays in order, who understands the room. So when patrons come in, they can show them exactly where they need to look. So I did speak with a couple of the people that she mentioned on the staff, but I know one of them was not entirely interested in taking that over, and the others kind of thinking about it. But at some point we need to have some sort of solution. I don't know if it's another volunteer. If anybody has ideas for somebody who is who could be a really a resource for us for that room, I would say myself and the staff, we know parts of the room and know certain resources, but we don't have the kind of breadth of knowledge that Phyllis did. So if you happen to think of anybody, please let me know. We're not. Hers was strictly a volunteer position, so if it's a volunteer who has that sort of interest, certainly let me know. Facilities, reaching out to Signs Plus. I didn't get a chance to get to it today. I will reach out to them tomorrow about the 2 plaques for the Perlman dedication. Let's see, other facilities news. Gem Heating and Plumbing was in, no issues there. They did their biannual maintenance check. ADC, Chris from ADC has to have somebody from the staff stop over. He was checking on that this week. If not, he will stop over to pop the cap on the system and make sure that everything is cleared out. Usually that's once every 6 months. So I've put it on his radar, and if I don't hear from him, I will get back to him. So let's see. James and I met with Jeremy, what was it, about a week and a half ago, I think. Let's see. So that was good. We talked about the bid process, and also talked about what sort of interaction, if any, we need to have with Abacus. My understanding is that those 2 things, the architect that we hire and Abacus, are completely separate. So there's not any sort of meetings or, exchange of information that there needs to be between those 2 going forward. Town accountant has set up the first half of, set up the account to receive the first half of the earmark, which I believe we should be getting shortly. I talked to Tracy, the town treasurer. It's very possible. She was asking me some questions that I think it's possible it's coming in pretty soon if she hasn't received it already. I will ask her again on that because she did ask me a couple of questions. And I mentioned to her that it should be $12,500. She confirmed that, so I'm going to guess that perhaps the first installment is actually there. Anybody have questions about that? I don't know if that makes okay. In any event,
Andrew,
yeah.
Andrew, I actually do have a question. So if we're getting it in installments, and
Yes.
how does that work? So if we hire a firm to do our feasibility study,
Right. Yep.
Our budget is $25,000 to complete this study, but
Right.
we only have a certain amount of money up front. I'm not familiar with the last, when you hired Abacus for the last one, but I mean, how does that work?
It worked it's a little strange. I think it worked a little bit differently because I always had to file a report, and with that report, then the money would be transferred. I did it once sort of in the time frame that we had. I think, I don't know if there were, I'm sorry, my apologies. I can't remember I think there were 2 reports I had to do.
Okay.
Once I put in the report, the first report, then the $12,500 was released. And then we just arrange, obviously, with the architect when that would be, transferred to them. And then the other half, obviously, on completion of the project. And at that point was when I had to file additional paperwork. I had to, all along the way, provide them with where we were at in the process.
Okay. So we would basically pay the architect in installments or whatever we agree upon. Okay.
Right. I think, yeah, I think that's what has to be worked out with the architect. Exactly. Oh, and James seems to.
Jeremy also had no concern about it. As he said, once those funds are transferred to us, they're ours to execute. And since it doesn't require that bid process and it is under the $30,000 limit, we can move on out. And he said the town's good for the money because we already got half of it, and we'll be able to cover however that architect wants to do kind of installments. So
Okay.
From the TA town administrator perspective, it's going to be easy because we've already been wired the money and we'll own the account.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And, once we decide on an architect, that's, we decide, or they can let us know how that is going to be apportioned to them in the process. At least that's my understanding of it. Okay. I think that was it about the rectory. And the architect, although Jeremy is asked as we meet as a subcommittee to just make sure to loop him in on the process. And let him know where we're at, different stages. And I can do that, certainly. Let's see. Budget. Yeah, budget. Let's see, 34,150.96 was spent from the budget in January. It included 15,186 in salaries and 18,964 in operations. We're just under 54% of the budget spent through, and we should be a little over 58% at this stage, so we're not in too bad a shape. Let's see, areas of greatest expenditure for the month. Spent $1,300 in utilities and fuel, so the national grid bill is obviously going up and will for the next 3 months probably. Building maintenance, we spent around $2,000. Spent a little over $8,800 in books and close to $3,000 in programming. I do have, a budget meeting with the town administrator Monday this next week. I sent him some additional supporting material today, which included justification for line increases. We spoke last time at the trustees meeting. There are 2 line increases and then a third as a result. So there's a line increase in building maintenance for $5,000 to deal with the concrete foundation that remains after the carriage house was taken down. There is an addition that's been made to salaries in the amount of $7,700 for the 8 hours a week library technician. And then books has been increased by $3,300, and that's because, of course, we need to make sure that it's 19% of the budget. A couple things were reallocated. Some money, about $500 into supplies, and then reallocated, I believe it was $1,200 into programming. And that was pulled from utilities and fuel because for whatever reason, even though our bills are high in the winter, we still seem to have utility and fuel money left in that line at the end of the year. So I felt safe in us doing that. Does anybody have any questions about the budget part of the report?
That meeting with Jeremy, or is
Yes.
that going to be just a quick 15-minute one?
Yeah, he's got it listed from 10:30 to 11. So departmentally, I don't know what he has after that. A couple met this week. My understanding was like a 20-minute, 25, something like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just curious what everyone's thoughts are. I know we talked about this at the last meeting, but should the building maintenance, at least as far as the carriage house concrete slab safety goes, should that really come out of the library budget? I mean,
I guess it's a good question. I know obviously the
technically
rectory is
town. I'm not saying the whole $5,000, but whatever it costs to. I don't know. I'm just asking that.
I mean,
I see Elena.
yeah, no. I almost think I don't think it would hurt to ask Jeremy, like when I'm in the budget meeting, whether or not this is something that really should come out of the building maintenance. He may say, well, it is town property, so that, you know, we'll want to handle this ourselves. I don't know. But I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, I did. That's the only reason why I said that. Just for that area. I'm not,
Sure.
Obviously.
Right.
I mean, if it has to, it has to, but.
Yeah. Understood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had kind of similar thoughts, which is that like it's a one-time thing as opposed to a budget thing. So it seems like it should be separate from what goes into the calculation for books, for example, because
Sure.
it's not ongoing. And like I do wonder about having it be in like the town's like maintenance, just because it's not a recurring maintenance issue, but a one-off thing. So like,
Yeah,
I agree it should be funded, but whether which line item it should go under, I think that's a good question.
Okay.
And I can tell them that we had some questions about that, and for the moment, that's where we had placed the amount.
Yeah.
And then we'll just discuss. He may say to pull that and put it elsewhere. He might, suggest that the town be the one to fund that, which is obviously fine too. But I will definitely bring it up to him. Programs, things are going well. Let's see. Most of the play groups and story times have at least 20 people in attendance, if not more. Sometimes it's 40. Sometimes it stretches the bounds and we're close to 50. Other programs that were really well attended, the puppet story times continue to be kidding around yoga. So some of the other folks that come in to do their programs, those are seeing increases as well. Jill Vetstein's The Testing Child had over 22 people on Zoom. Coffee and Conversations had 24 in attendance. Music and Movement continues to get quite a few. She had, 39 who participated, and we had an excellent turnout for Michael Tugas for King Philip's War. We had 43 in attendance that night, so that was really good. I won't go into too many upcoming February events. There is one new performer who's coming in for a children's show, Malik the Magic Guy. I think that's during February vacation. Somebody that one of the performers Tara's worked with before, he knows Malik and recommended Malik. I'm going to forget who the performer was. Yikes. In any case, not a big deal. And then Science with Amanda in February here, this will be her last session, but we may look to have her in again for another set of sessions. That was all funded by a Cultural Council grant, but it's been well attended and we've had really good response from it. So depending on what she's able to do and what the cost is, we might try to have her continue in the spring months and just before summer. Projects. We're making progress on the Library of Things. We do have browsable patron binders we're working on. That's just for us to, they'll have barcodes on them, pretty much like we do with the games. And when people check them out, we'll be able to set those aside. I haven't given up on the idea of, like we talked about, like a scrolling slideshow type of thing, maybe on the screen downstairs. I'd like to maybe talk to Lonnie about that, how we could arrange that, or what would be effective that way. So it's another kind of, publicity avenue we have for that if we want. I think somebody also mentioned like upstairs, maybe something that was a little more visual as well this past time, that, if a video sort of scrolling video doesn't work downstairs, we can figure something else out that's visual and draws people to the program. Let's see, other projects. They're weeding easy readers right now. Probably going to be weeding chapter books right after that because those areas are the tightest up in children's. Our volunteers are assisting with weeding by checkout date and with the Library of Things projects. We're also getting, actually I should say, Sarah Berghardt comes in on Wednesdays, and she's been excellent in terms of processing. She's working with Chris and processing DVDs and books, whatever else. So that's been a big help as well. So that's good. Town news. The staff filled out employee surveys for the Collins Center. And they were turned back in on the 23rd. This next week, Wednesday, I have a Zoom interview with the Collins Center representative, as does Tara, and Monica is going to be the representative for the staff. They're half-hour interviews on Zoom the morning of Wednesday next week, which is the 12th, I think. So that's moving along. Dan Byer stopped by, and then I actually had him come by again because we've been talking about the website with Civics Plus. And so he gave us a list of what is confirmed that will transfer over. That is to say, what Civics Plus will transfer over versus the things that we would have to transfer over. There was nothing that we had to transfer over that Tara and I looked at and said, this is going to be really difficult or time consuming. So that's good. One issue is, and Lee, I believe already knows this because we talked about it, is that the Friends are going to have a separate website because administratively, we cannot post their minutes or any other sort of administrative notifications that they might have. That needs to be on a separate website. We can continue to publicize their events. We can also continue to put their events on our event calendar and allow people to register for their events. The only thing that we can't do is anything that's administrative side, that we can't post those things administrative side. Not the same for the trustees minutes and those sorts of things. Those can all stay on the website. So
Andrew,
we did talk about
can we have a link?
Yes.
For the
yes,
Friends?
absolutely. Yes, you can definitely have, I'm sorry. Yes, you can definitely have a link to the administrative Friends page.
Okay.
Yeah, not a problem. So that's good. I talked to Dan about a couple of other things having to do with the website. We looked at the Bellingham site again because I actually like the way it looks. It's clean. There are little radial buttons that I think are really effective, and they have a scrolling banner at the top. I think a lot of this is going to transfer over. The Civics Plus only has a certain number of pages that they'll transfer over. So what Dan's been doing lately is meeting with departments and sort of crunching down the number of pages that they need to transfer, because once they hit that threshold, there would be an extra cost if they did additional pages. So, but I think we managed to eliminate maybe 20, 30 pages that, because the town is over their page allotment at the moment. And so like for example, we have genealogy, and there's a lot of sort of split out drop-down menus in that go to documents. But that right there, I think, saved 17 to 20 pages. So it's interesting stuff. I mean, I know that when we talked to, when James and I talked to Jeremy, he said that he would loop us into a meeting soon. The calendar's all set with Civics Plus for the next 3-4 months, I guess. But that when the time was appropriate for the library to sit in and kind of go over things with Civics Plus, he would let us know so that Tara and I could sit in, and perhaps James wants to, or I don't know that it's, I think it's, whoever's interested sort of in the website itself and where we're at with things. So, so that was good. What else? Submitted a mid-year report to Jeremy. He had suggested that department heads give a heads up as far as what sorts of budget items that we had added to the budget for the year. So in this case, as I mentioned, building maintenance, 5,000, and then the additional amount in salaries for another library technician position. So I put both of those into the document. And then he was supposed to go over department mid-year reports yesterday at the select board meeting. One item or bit of business that we probably want to talk about. I had a Girl Scout who had asked whether or not she could set up a booth in the library for sales. I thought it was in the library initially, and I said, well, it was not something that we can do because, promoting your services or sales was not allowed if you're in the meeting rooms. But then she mentioned, well, could I set up outside the library? And I said, you're going to freeze. No, I didn't say she's going to freeze, but I mean, it's really cold right now. I didn't say that at all. I just said that I would, I spoke with Ellen, and Ellen didn't seem to have anything specific that said you couldn't do that, but I wanted to get the trustees' take on it. I have some thoughts myself about whether that was possible. If it wasn't possible, I don't think that the Girl Scout, was going to be all that chagrined. I mean, it seemed to me that, whatever the decision was is the decision. So she wasn't adamant, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know what everybody thinks about that.
Was it cookies that they wanted to sell?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my only thought would be if we say yes
Mhm.
to the Girl Scout, are we then obligated to say yes to anybody who asks?
See, that's my concern.
And I don't, are there things we would be uncomfortable with people selling that might ask? Or where's the line? And
Right.
how do you draw that line? So we let a Girl Scout in, then a Boy Scout wants to come, which is fine. But what if just another townsperson who's an adult comes and wants to sell
Their
something?
craft items or
And I don't feel like I see other buildings around town having sales outside their building. Like the town hall, you never see
Right.
anybody set up a little thing outside their door. I don't know. And
Yeah.
again,
And that's what I said to Ellen. I said, I've never seen anybody sell anything outside of any other, town department. So it seems a little unusual to me. And I agree with you. I think that it opens, it's a can of worms. If we do that, then who do we not honor to do the same if they want to?
I'm not trying to say I have problems with the Girl Scouts coming to sell, because I don't. It's just more
Right.
of how to be equitable and making sure that we're equitable to everybody.
And I've seen, them sell outside of commercial sites before, like the grocery store and that, but I don't think I've ever seen them outside of a municipal building. I might be wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong, especially within Mendon. At least with the troop that Alexis is in, they use Muffin House. They'll use, sometimes the churches will allow them to use some of the space, but it's always, private entities, not municipalities, or, public facilities, I should say. And actually, with that note, like they specifically can't do in front of the post office because that's a federal building, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into that as well.
Mhm.
So I think, in my opinion, this is a good question, and this is also maybe even a bigger question for town-wide. But we could say, hey, we don't have a town policy that says we can, and that's something we have to figure out before we could authorize this.
Right.
Because we don't want to be the ones to get ahead of it and be like, oh yeah, go for it, you're cool, and
Right.
then the avalanche that comes from there. So we can be honest and say, hey, the town doesn't have a program or policy for it, so we need to go back and talk through with the larger set of department heads on what the right choice would be. So I don't want to say it's pushing the ball down the court, or however you use that term, but at least it covers us for not doing something stupid.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, I could certainly tell her that, it's the sort of thing at this point that it needs to be discussed with the wider, community in the town, the town departments, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. I don't think, like I said, I don't think she's gonna be crushed necessarily that she's not able to, at this point. I think it's probably fair to find out where the line is with this. And so, I mean, I could certainly ask Jeremy as well what his thoughts are on it when I meet with him on Monday. But I mean, yeah, for the time being, I can say that this is something we need to look into. We don't want to, put the cart before the horse on this. So,
I think that's smart.
do that. Okay. That I can do. The only other thing I have under regional news, obviously, I'm keeping an eye on the federal funding freeze issue because the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners operates through the federal organization, which is known as the Institute for Museum and Library Services. They would be impacted, and if they were impacted, then certain things like ComCat, which is our Commonwealth catalog for interlibrary loans, not the main interlibrary loan service that we have, but the one that allows us to send materials and to get materials from regions outside of our region. So that would be affected. Statewide databases we probably wouldn't have access to anymore, and those are nice to be able to include with our own database offerings. Another one, I think that this would be really significant, is the play groups that are held. The Tara works with Beginning Bridges CFCE, and she has a Monday play group with them and a Thursday play group with them, which are, I mean, we've had those for quite a while now, and they're incredibly well attended. So that would certainly be affected as well. My guess would be we wouldn't be able to continue to offer that. So just keeping an eye on those things, just kind of putting it out there that those are some areas that would be impacted. Does anybody have any questions about the director's report? Real quickly, the budget report, as I mentioned, we've spent through 54.5% in salaries, spent through 53.1% in operations. As I said, we should be somewhere a little, around 58% spent through at this point. So we're about 4% off of that mark. A couple areas of concern, although I wouldn't say that it's deep concern. We've spent close to 69% of our programming budget, spent a little over 69% of our contracted services budget. But there are some other budget lines that are running a little bit behind. So for example, we spent about 31% in supplies. I suspect that that's not going to be too difficult to make up. Utilities and fuel obviously is still low, but with the next 4 months, I think that number is certainly going to change. Let's see. Oh, the January bill, yes, for National Grid just came in at $21.25, which is going to be paid shortly. So as you can see, the amounts are going up on that. Does anybody have any questions about the budget? Books and building maintenance are right in line, which is nice. That's what I have for that.
All right, so that brings us to the library policies, which is just that big fun one, I think.
You got that right. And I have gotten some edits from folks, so thank you for those who have taken time to go through it. I think it's smart to give, kind of another month around just for folks to be able to wrap their head around it and provide edits. So my goal will be, if it's good for the committee, but to give everyone maybe 3 more weeks, and then I'll close off the editing time then and say, all right, I'll go do all the fixes, and then get it back out to all the trustees for kind of final review and final push. And I think kind of like we joked about, but I think it makes sense that we'll break it up into 2 parts for kind of the review. So it'll take us a couple more months before we get to a final approved, but that way we can actually focus and look at some of the specifics. So if folks have concerns, we can talk through without just trying to push through the whole thing in one meeting. So my ask is, if you do have comments, edits, concerns, or questions, please, as folks have, shoot them over to me. I will compile everything. And let me look at the calendar. It may just be smart to say, let's no more edits until the end of February. February 28th is going to be the deadline for any edits. 29th, 28th this year. So if anything I get on that date or earlier, I will amend. And of course, I say that, but as we review, if something else comes up, of course, we're going to change and correct. I want to make sure we got the right document for the library.
Awesome.
Then James, once that's implemented for the library, is it then being rolled out to other municipalities?
That's my goal. I'm going to sit down with Jeremy and have try to corner away a little time during one of the department head meetings to talk about, hopefully get Mark there as well, but talk about emergency management and what this type of policy does and helps employee-wise and training-wise. So that's the goal. We got to start somewhere, and you guys have been awesome to put up with it. So I appreciate you.
It was painful to read. No, just kidding.
I know. It's a lot.
James, did I send the second half of that to you?
No, I think just the first half.
Okay, I've got the second half for you. I will send it shortly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it yet, but I will look at it before the end of February. I promise.
No stress. It's there's a lot of stuff going on, so it's all good.
All right. So that brings us back to the next item on the agenda of the rectory group update. So I think last meeting we had discussed moving that into a subcommittee and putting that to a vote tonight. And I don't know if we still want to do that with a smaller group, or if we want to wait and look at doing that next month when we're kind of in a more normal group setting and we're not remote because of weather. I know Kay started a conversation with Ellen. Ellen made a comment today that the committee shouldn't have more than 2 trustees on it because of quorum issues. Which I think, don't we have to have 4 people to have a quorum, not 3? That was her reasoning. She said if you have 3, then you have a quorum and it's too many.
I know the reason for this because I talked to her about it. She said that Sean is like a liaison for the schools, not necessarily a specifically elected or appointed member. So then that shrinks your group down to 5, right?
Then same would be for Lee.
Oh, but
Lee as a friend is liaison to the friends.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you may want to get clarification from Ellen. My understanding was she said you can't really count Sean, I think is what she said to me. But you might want to get clarification on that.
And that would be true because it would be myself, Lisa, Gay, Allison, and Howie are the 5 elected members.
Right.
Right.
So that means the 2 is the cutoff where 3 becomes too many. Yeah. Bummer. Okay.
Well, and I mentioned this to Gay earlier. I don't have a problem stepping back and not being a member of that group, so that we can move forward. I don't have any issue with that. It may even be better if I have a lot going on. So if I step back, like I said, I don't have any issue with that.
So that's completely fine. Like, of course I don't want you to step back, but I completely understand. And it's still going to be something that we're sharing with the trustees as a committee for any approvals. So it's not like you're not going to still be involved. It's just that you wouldn't have to attend the second meeting.
Right. Yeah.
I guess the other question then is, what does it gain us by having it being a true subcommittee?
Well, I thought what we had discussed last month was that we're kind of at a place because that group is going to start making recommendations with the money. That's why we had to move into a subgroup and not just be a working group any longer.
Yep. Okay. Good point.
When we looked at the definition,
yeah,
it looked like that we were kind of in that place where we had to move in that direction.
Right. And I think the same thing would be if we were moving into a regular committee as opposed to a subcommittee. We'd still be in the same predicament with only allowing 2 trustees to be part of it.
True. Yep. Okay. Good copy. Thank you.
Well, all right. So do we want to move forward with making it a true subcommittee and voting on that today, and who the members are going to be? Or do we want to hold up?
I think
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think we may end up being challenging this evening. We may not have enough people to actually hold the meeting on the virtually, but at least we can make the official saying, hey, yeah, this subcommittee is to move forward if we vote all for it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And since you already posted as a subcommittee, it's probably wise to take the vote and establish as a subcommittee at this meeting, just so,
Okay.
the second meeting is kind of legit in that manner.
Yeah.
Good point.
Then I'll put a motion forward to initiate and accept or start the subcommittee for the rectory group with, I will recommend Gay as the chair and myself as note taker.
I accept.
And
Not that I had a choice. No, just kidding. No,
hey,
we discussed this
debate
already.
it. We did discuss it.
I will second that if I think I can. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, subcommittee created.
So then I
Um,
think,
so-
James, just to before we leave that subject, I think we should at least log on to the next meeting when we're ready. Because I believe Monica is planning on attending. Andrew, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we can at least group her in, let her know what's going on. The meeting can be short, but at least we can group her in and let her know what's going on.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think Lee's a member of that group as
Oh,
well.
yes, yep,
So that would make, if Monica's there would be 5 of you if Andrew was there too. I
yeah.
don't know how many official members are going to be part of that group to make a quorum for that group.
But that will work because there's only 2 of us and there'd be 3 other members.
Yeah, so we don't need a quorum. So it's just, as long as there's only 2 trustee members, we don't need to have a quorum.
Right. No. But I mean, a quorum for that group. Don't we have to
Oh.
have a quorum if you're going to
Okay.
make decisions, I guess.
Right.
But I think you
That's
would
a good
have
point.
a quorum.
I think we would, because
I think you
that's
would
fine.
because it'd be 4 of you of the 5
If
official
Monica's there.
members.
Okay,
Yep.
I mean, I have a couple other people that I used to, put, CC on the emails, but they weren't necessarily part of the group. Like Jane was a part of it, but is no, she's kind of on the periphery at this point. And
right. And I kept Jane and I kept Dan on the last couple of
Good.
emails that I have sent.
yeah. Jane still
Um,
wants to hear, where things are at with that. And she might even jump back in at some point.
Yeah,
Was Elena on it?
I believe Elena, I don't know if you got the last email, but she definitely was on, she definitely attends the meetings when she's able
Right.
to.
Right. Was she considered a member, though?
Well, she's the
Liaison?
select board liaison, but
Okay. Right. Okay. It sounds like there would be a quorum, I guess, is
I
the
believe so.
the short of it.
so do we have to have a vice chair or I mean, if I'm going to be the chairperson, James going to be the note taker, do we need to have a vice chair? Do you know that? Anyone?
I don't know.
I-
Practically
that-
speaking,
I
it'd
don't
probably
think
be,
you do. I mean,
yeah. It might be a good idea just in case the chair can't make it or something, it's usually just for pragmatics to keep things moving along, because you just don't know. And you don't assume that the secretary would step into the chair role. So,
Right.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
there are committees that don't have a vice chair. So not a problem. It also going to be James.
And
Lady, you-
honestly,
Go ahead, James.
we can put that on the notes as well and say, yeah, I'm secretary, but we can cover as vice chair, as needed, just to make sure we have continuity of operations if someone's not available to be there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay. I think we can
Alright.
move on.
All right, so now we're on to strategic planning goals.
I'm at the stage at this point where the next thing is to sit down with the staff and dig into some of these that we talked about, or that I talked about earlier in the report. I did kind of look. I was amazed actually as I looked through the list again and noted how many things we've actually touched on within the last year. So that it's been we've made a lot of progress, which is great. As I said, some of the things are maybe bigger projects at this point than they have to do with outreach. And some of that's going to depend on staff and availability and what people are able to do. So I don't know if anybody had, when I talked last, I think I talked about outreach. I talked about doing a technical inventory. I'd like to be able to do that this year, or try to do that this year, because I think we're going to be doing some swapping over of equipment, because Windows 10 is ending. Is that correct? I think. So I think that's going to happen as well. I don't have a lot else outside of that at the moment. I'll have more information on sort of what we talked about in the staff meeting next time.
Right. So that brings us to the cardboard boat race.
So I talked to Dan stopped by because we were talking about the website, and then we talked about the boat race afterwards. And John Dudley hasn't really approached me about the weekend, because I know he was really big on the idea of the weekend. But frankly, we just all talked about it and thought it probably wasn't a good idea, just based on the fact that people are away and take long weekends, or they're on vacations, and I just don't think we'd get the bang for our buck if we tried to do it on a weekend. So the dates for the boat race are Tuesday, July 22nd. And then the rain date will be that following Tuesday, the 29th. I think there are some things that we can do. We started talking about, like, oh, could you do food trucks? Could you do this? But I think we kind of agreed that, number one, there's not a ton of parking over there. And if you try to introduce food trucks in that, I don't know how well that would work. But we could potentially do like grilling out. Like, I know that, the police and fire have done grilling out and that sort of thing. So maybe we could do something along those lines. I don't think Dan would be opposed necessarily to doing that.
Yeah,
talk a little bit about
that's
that.
a possibility. I think that's not a bad idea to think about if we wanted to, but I think food trucks would take away from Dan's snack shack.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so, in as much as we want to really kind of do a big blowout, I think that we have to do this kind of within reason, especially within reason as far as how much parking we have.
Right. And in my experience with food trucks in the past, you have to either guarantee them a certain amount of sales.
Right.
And like when we did cow chip bingo.
Oh, sure.
And, that's, even though we know we have a lot of people, that gets kind of dicey. Yeah. And we don't want to, I think that's money that we don't need to have to come up with if they don't make their sales.
Right, exactly. And like, the space in on the beach there is finite as well. And so we have to be like cognizant of the fact that if we're going to try to get 25 boats in there, and have all of the people who are observing and the people who are racing, we also got to think about just making sure that things are navigable so we can actually get through the crowd to the beach. And so I think that, those things are interesting to think about, but I also think we need to make sure this is doable and that we don't like sort of, we're not body to body in that, in that confined space. So anyway, those are just some thoughts, some things we were talking about. But we didn't go a lot further than that. Obviously the next thing is we have to start getting the word out about the date and the rain date. Start thinking about how we're going to promote this. A 25 for 25 initiative and all that sort of thing. So, obviously we have a lot to think about, but I also think that we should try to, we should tackle this sooner than later. I don't want to, to be suddenly June and we're scrambling. So I really think we probably want to get on this within the next, month. And I think Dan kind of felt the same way, that we really want to get on top of it by March and be doing some things and talking it up. And I'd like to talk to other departments. I'll try to reach out to other departments about doing a boat, including those that have never done one before, because I think that would be really good, as well as businesses in town, if we can, But that's going to take some people to go out there and sing the praises of the boat race and try to encourage people to have an entry.
Not to throw this on the Friends, but in the past with things like Cow Chip Bingo, it was the Friends that kind of did all that solicitation as far as the businesses go. I mean, technically, well, we're not asking for money, but I don't know how that works as far as trustees getting involved in that part of it. And we know we're not asking for money or donations or anything like that. So I guess that's usually where we have to draw the line. We can't ask for money. So I guess it shouldn't matter. I mean, especially if people know people that, have connections with businesses in town. Lisa.
Grayson doesn't work there anymore. No, really, he quit last week or 2 weeks ago, so he really doesn't work there anymore. But I can still ask.
No, but I'm just saying, like in general, like if you like happen to know people that work at the Muffin House or people that I don't really know a lot of people as far as businesses in town, but if anybody knows anybody that works at any of those places, can't hurt to ask.
I'm already talking to folks.
Surprise,
I'll probably talk to a couple as well. I think I know a couple others that we could talk to. And, Grayson mentioned when he and I were talking about the other day was going to VVT and seeing if the different shops wanted to create boats to put in there as well. I know VVT is not Mendon, it's technically Upton, but they do a lot of shop competitions from what he's told me.
Yeah.
So that might be something. I wouldn't know who to contact over there though for something like that. But the high school might be an option. I can talk to people there and see if, the schools want to do anything like that. I don't know if Girl Scout troops or Boy Scout troops would be interested. I don't know. Alana, do you have a thought?
Sorry, it's a little noisy where I am, but so I do have a list of Mendon businesses that so Ellen can provide that if anybody wants that. I asked for it for the Friends of Mendon Elders for their yard sale. So I already have the list of businesses, so I'm happy to pass that. I don't know if that's something you can work from, James, for your other purposes. But
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Already ready. I can just forward the email.
Love it.
Is it worth it at all to, I know this is one of the, you probably don't want to hear this, but is it worth it at all to look at having a boat race working, a working group at all, or just meeting informally to talk about this stuff? Or is that, is that beyond what we really need to do here?
My brain says that would be, if we did something informal, that might be good for if there are a few folks who are interested, but I don't know that we want to, set up or call it a working group. I think as we get closer and we start talking about doing some of the classes, or at least, hosting some of the discussion, I think that's going to
we'll want to meet informally.
Yeah, by its own nature, gonna kind of force some meetups and some time.
Okay.
But no, it's a good point. I think at least where we are today, I think we're still in a pretty good spot.
Okay. All right.
All right. We've already discussed I put rectory subcommittee on here again, so I guess we've already handled that one. So we can take that off the list. So the only other thing would be topics not anticipated within 48 hours.
Oh, real quick, I did email Tara Bennett about internships.
Mhm.
I have not heard back from her yet, but I mentioned publicity creation and social media platforms, like getting us on other social media platforms. So I hope to hear back from her. If I haven't heard back in the next, by next week late, I'll reach out to her again.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I mentioned to her that you were going to reach out, I think. Although I will say the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, she has been straight out trying to do inspired learning and getting that set up, only to
Oh,
be
really?
postponed.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So she's been really straight out with that. And we just had a big deadline for our application for innovation career pathways. So she's been really busy with that. So I would expect next week or the week after she would probably reach out, because she, her time should be not free, but freer than it has been up to this point. So
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
And Lee, I didn't know if you wanted to do that quick update at the end, if that worked for you.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you.
thank you, Andrew.
I just emailed everybody just a little paragraph of what the friends are doing, but to give you the quick overview, the Zentangle class that was slated for tonight is moved to late February. There's also a felting class in March. There's a floral arranging basket in April. There's a historical reenactor, Dolly Madison, with a few tea sessions on May 1st. We also have a new friend who we were happy to welcome this week, and we're looking forward to working with her. Her name is Donna. Very nice. And the seed library is getting brought up to speed and being replenished. Finally, the trees for kids and teens, the free trees are being, orders are being taken and they'll be distributed when later on in the spring. So rocking and rolling the spring with the friends.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about the tech problems. I apologize.
That's okay.
This is like my fourth language of video conferencing, so I'm always off.
All right. Anything else?
A date for next month?
Yes. So the second Thursday in March is the 13th.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay with me.
I'm good on that.
Yep.
All right. So we want to do the 13th at 6.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
And with that, I will motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
So we're done at 7:04.
All right, let me stop recording. I don't know how.
Same button. And actually, while you're doing that, I'm going to go get the other link up and running.
Okay, very good. All right, we're stopped.